The first victory in the Middle East in the US and Israel's war against Iran. After the initial shock of the war, the energy market is trying to recover. The Ras Tanura oil refinery, owned by Saudi Arabia's state oil monopoly Aramco, which was attacked by Iran in the early days of the war and was shut down, resumed operations today. And as for Iraq, which was forced to completely halt oil production, today it resumed oil exports to the Turkish port of Ceyhan. At the same time, wholesale gas prices in Europe slightly decreased today, in line with movements in the oil market. But it is precisely the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and the supply of liquefied natural gas that remain the main price drivers. But at the same time, Iran announced that it is preparing new strikes. The authorities in Tehran are calling for the evacuation of oil facilities in the Persian Gulf countries. The urgent warning concerns petrochemical facilities in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. At the same time, Donald Trump called on Syria to join Israel's war against Lebanese Hezbollah. My name is Alexi Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, please subscribe to this channel. Like this video, leave any comment below, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link is in the description of this video. There we post breaking news as soon as it comes in. So, on the 19th day of the war in the Middle East, the situation in the oil and gas market has shown the first signs of stabilization. But Iran immediately announced that it was preparing new strikes specifically against oil and gas facilities in the Persian Gulf countries. But let's start with relatively good news. The Ras Tanura oil refinery, which belongs to Saudi Arabia's state oil monopoly Aramco, resumed its operations today. The Ras Tanura complex includes one of the largest oil refineries in the Middle East, which processes 550,000 barrels per day, and it serves a critical role as a critically important export terminal for Saudi oil. The operation of this plant was halted on March 2nd due to a strike by an Iranian drone. Now this facility is returning to normal operations. By the way, perhaps not without the help of Ukrainian interceptor drones and those specialists who arrived in the Middle East. According to Zelensky, 201 military specialists have already arrived in this region. This is to help the Persian Gulf monarchies shoot down Iranian drones with our Ukrainian P-1 SAN interceptor drones, or as we call them, Paysun. Right. At the same time, the Iraqi authorities reported that oil exports from Iraqi fields in the city of Kirkuk to the Turkish port of Ceyhan have resumed via the pipeline. This was the result of an agreement between Baghdad and the regional government of Kurdistan. The regional administration of Kurdistan confirmed the agreement, stating that the parties will establish a joint committee to prepare for the resumption of oil exports through the regional pipeline starting today. Let us add that the parties also agreed to take the necessary security measures to protect the oil fields and ensure the uninterrupted operation of export activities. And this is a very important development because it significantly changes the configuration of interactions in the Middle East. Oil exports from Iraq through the Kurdistan region were suspended back in March 2023 after a decision by the Paris Arbitration Court, which completely stopped the flow of oil to Turkey. Until now, Iraq has been largely dependent on the Hormuz Strait, but the war between Iran and the US with Israel has effectively closed this route. And Iraq even they basically had to just stop oil production altogether because there was no way to export it. Now that the Hormuz Strait is closed, the Iraqi authorities have finally found common ground with the Kurds and thus found an alternative export option. And by the way, this has already affected the market. Just a week ago, the Iraqi authorities were forced to suspend the operation of all the country's oil terminals due to Iran's attacks on energy facilities in the region. Well, in particular, last week Iran attacked oil tankers in Portugal. 2 tankers caught fire at that time, and by the way, they were attacked by boats filled with explosives. After that, a representative of the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in his address to the Americans, warned that, quote, "It is necessary to prepare for the price of oil to reach $200 per barrel, because the price of oil depends on regional security, which you have destabilized. In addition, there are hopes that gas prices will also begin to stabilize despite the fact that in the Russian region, key LNG production operators have still not resumed production. Nevertheless, wholesale gas prices in Europe have slightly decreased today in line with movements in the oil market. But I would like to note that the situation in the Hormuz Strait and the supply of liquefied natural gas from this region still remain the main price drivers. The decrease in gas prices in Europe is insignificant, that's minus 85 euros. Nevertheless, this is the first sign of at least a hint of stabilization. At the same time, oil prices also dropped a little today. But experts assure that, for example, the increase in oil supply from Iraq brought a sigh of relief to the markets since there are no signs of de-escalation in the Iranian conflict, which is causing disruptions in supplies from the Middle East. The European gas market will be paying especially close attention to the dynamics of liquefied natural gas supplies to Europe in the coming weeks. And just for context, I'll note here that due to the Iranian conflict, the production and export of liquefied natural gas from Qatar, which accounts for about 20% of the world's supply, has been suspended. And most of these exports are usually supplied to customers in Asia. Here it's important to understand that it would seem, yes, the main part of this gas goes to Asia. Причем здесь вообще Европа? But due to the loss of these LNG volumes from Qatar, several shipments that were previously headed to Europe suddenly changed direction to Asia. In other words, Asian buyers are now doing everything they can to outbid for gas that was meant for Europe, and as you can understand, this causes an additional increase in gas prices. But it seems that this relief in the market won't last long, because Iran is determined to escalate the war and thereby disrupt the oil and gas market. First of all, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated today that Iran's strikes on urban areas of neighboring countries are supposedly not Iran's fault, since the US moved its troops from military bases to hotels in these cities. Quote, "We did not limit ourselves to only the official bases of the enemies. Wherever American troops were gathered, wherever their facilities were located, they became targets. Some of these places may be near urban areas, but that's not our fault, that's America's fault." By the way, with these statements, Araghchi basically admitted that they really are hitting hotels and residential buildings. In addition, Iran's ambassador to the UN in Geneva, Ali Bahraini, previously stated that Iran is targeting only military bases, not civilian facilities in the Arab countries of the Persian Gulf. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi added that Iran is not seeking a ceasefire with the US and Israel, but rather a complete end to the war on all fronts. Here, the implication is that they are saying, don't touch Hezbollah in Lebanon, don't touch Hamas in the Gaza Strip, don't touch the Yemeni Houthis, don't touch the so-called resistance in Iraq, and so on. As a result, today, Iran warned that it will soon attack oil and gas facilities in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. This was reported by the Iranian state broadcasting company IRIB. They called on people to leave all the mentioned facilities. In Tehran, it was announced that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will attack a refinery in Saudi Arabia, the Al Hosn gas field in the United Arab Emirates, the Al Jubail petrochemical complex in Saudi Arabia, and a petrochemical complex associated with Chevron, by the way, a company in Qatar, as well as the Ras Laffan oil refinery in Qatar. And how exactly all these plants are connected to American troops was not explained in Iran, of course, but one thing became obvious. Iran has resorted to energy terrorism, just as Russia is doing in Ukraine. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. Also, if you found this episode interesting and useful, I would appreciate any financial support from you. It will help our channel grow. You can do this through donations, subscriptions, or YouTube memberships. How to do this? All the links and details are in the description of this video, or you can use the QR code. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.